Grab your cocktail and get ready for this episode of the Old Fashion Masonic Podcast. Welcome to the Old Fashion Masonic Podcast, where we talk all things Freemasons while drinking an old fashioned. I'm Brian, and man, are we fortunate enough to have another Grand Lodge officer and from my home state of Kansas. So it is my privilege to introduce Right Worshipful Dave Hendricks. Dave, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Sweet. So got a couple questions for you. First of all, have you ever seen an episode?
One or two.
One or two? Great. So you kind of know that there's no sneaky stuff, but there's a little sorcery here and there. And I want to warn you in advance when we get to the last question, the most important question of the podcast, I'm going to try to put a little dirty pressure on you. So I'm just going to warn all the listeners in advance. I'm going to bring a little smoke at you.
I've been trying to figure out what that's going to be, right? Because I know it's coming. So
okay, all right, well, that's good. So
ready.
Don't overthink
I'm ready.
Don't overthink it, because
no, I won't. Absolutely.
As we like to know on this podcast, we want to know as much about the man as we do the Mason. So without Mason, push Mason to the side. Who's Dave?
Sure. So Dave is just an average guy, right? I was born on December 6th at the 97th General Army Hospital in Frankfurt, Germany. My dad, Don, career military man, retired after 31 years of active duty. Is from Philadelphia. My mom, who was a professional dancer, is from St. Albans, England. So I'm born in Germany, and I'm half English. So I'm just kind of a little bit of everything. Grew up, I spent 9.5 years living in Europe, 8 in Germany, and 1.5 in England. Had the opportunity to spend a few summers there as well with my grandparents. I moved to Kansas about 2 days before I turned 16. I'm a graduate of Leavenworth High School, and I graduated from Emporia State University with a degree in business management. I spent 25 years at Emporia State as in a variety of different positions. Finally, the director of the Memorial Union, and then also campus planning. Spent 5 years at the Kansas Masonic Foundation before returning to my roots, which is facilities management. And I work for TFI Family Services, which is a child welfare agency, and I'm director of facilities for that organization. And I'm responsible for our facilities in the state of Kansas, Nebraska, and Oklahoma. I've been married for 31 years to my beautiful wife, Shanda, who is a huge supporter. She loves to be in the background, but definitely pushes me to the front. And I think we can all agree, right? Behind every good man is a great woman. And she definitely is my rock there. We have 2 grown kids. My son, Danny, is 28. He lives in Olathe. He works as a dispatcher for KU Med. And his part-time gig, he works for the Kansas City Chiefs, and he is the proud owner of 3 Super Bowl rings and an AFC Championship ring. He is a Master Mason. He is currently the Senior Warden of Justice Lodge and the Junior Warden of Emporia Lodge. And if we're both elected, we'll serve as Worshipful Master of Emporia in 2026, which is the year that I will serve as Grand Master. So pretty excited there. My daughter Kelsey is 26. She also lives in Olathe and is director of after-school programs in the Blue Valley School District. And she was a 4-year starter at point guard for Ottawa University, and is my sports junkie. So we're pretty tight there.
That's pretty good. So you didn't forget anybody. You don't have to buy a dress. You gave accolades, with the exception of, I will tell you, left something out. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say you left out that we have a Master Mason in Kansas that drove Taylor Swift on a golf cart. What are you talking? Why'd you leave that out, Dave?
Right. So, and it's funny, right? Because you live vicariously through your kids, right?
Yeah.
So yes, my son Danny, and part of his gig with the Kansas City Chiefs, had the opportunity both on Christmas Day and then the Miami Dolphins game to be the lucky one that got to pick up Taylor Swift and her entourage at her vehicle and drive her up into the stadium. So, yes, he's a celebrity.
You left that out, so it's important. So let me ask you this: is he a Swiftie?
It's well, I could tell there's no. I think he
Okay.
likes her because
I
she's
was gonna have you do him dirty a little bit.
no, he did say right, incredibly nice
I've heard
person,
nothing
very
but great
down to
things.
earth, very appreciative of their actions.
And she's a
But
great
yeah, no,
tipper.
well, I don't know. He didn't say that, so no, he loves old time country, so he's really not into the new age pop.
That's fair. That's fair. Good for him. He would rather drive around Ronnie Millsap or Eddie Rabbit. I get it.
But
So
yeah, right, or Willie Nelson, or yeah,
yeah.
right.
Okay, so you gave a great synopsis of who Dave is. So Dave, now I want you, let's go into this next segment. Walk us through from when you became a Master Mason to where you're at today.
Sure. So I'll start with my dad was raised a master mason in Triangle Lodge of 834 in Mannheim, Germany, part of the American Canadian Grand Lodge in 1973, right? So I'm eight. And so again, I lived in Germany for 8.5 years. So that's where I learned about masonry. I became a DMLA shortly after I turned 13, and quickly became the master counselor of my chapter. Um, and so I always knew I was going to be a Mason, right? And we moved to the States, and it, it's just different here, right? And um, so none of my parents really got very active early on in our stay in Leavenworth. I always knew I'd be a Mason, but I graduated high school, I went to college. I always tell everybody it took me a little longer to learn to subdue my passions before I could improve myself in masonry.
Right, right.
Um, my dad had been appointed Grand Sentinel for the Eastern Star in 1993 and served as a World Grand Patron in 1995. And at that point, after his appointment, that I knew I needed to join because I needed to be an Eastern Star member to support him in that endeavor. And so I petitioned. I got my first degree on January 29th, 1994. I was passed to a fellowcraft on March 14th and raised on April 4th, all in Emporia Lodge.
Wow.
Um, in the following year, my wife and I joined Eastern Star the night before my dad was installed worthy grand patron. And again, that was so we could be a part of his year and celebrate that with him. I quickly I had to be in line. I was that December, I was the junior deacon. In December of 1997, I was elected Worshipful Master of Emporia Lodge, and I served in 1998. Most Worshipful John Mowen tabbed me to
The
be a
voice
district
of God.
deputy. Yes, right. Absolutely. In 1999, I served as a district deputy for him, and then again in 2000 for Most Worshipful Stan Browning. Most Worshipful Glencore, for whatever reason, I guess maybe out of desperation, he tabbed me to be his Grand Junior Steward. I served as the area deputy the next year for Most Worshipful Tomlinson. In 2004, I was Grand Sword Bearer for Most Worshipful Alan Hurlbert. 2007, Grand Standard Bearer for Most Worshipful Jimmy Grassi. 2006, I was elected Secretary of Emporia Lodge, a position that I retain today. Um, 2014, I had what I consider to be the greatest appointed Grand Lodge position, and that is Grand Pursuivant. And I used to kid, I drove Miss Daisy, right? Most Worshipful Michael Halloran, a member of Emporia Lodge and good friend, asked me to serve in that role, and we had a great time together. 2018, I was traveling for the Kansas Masonic Foundation at that time, and they needed some help in a different district. And so I agreed to serve as a district deputy once again for Most Worshipful Talbot. 2020, I was Grand Senior Steward for Tony Borum. 2021, I was Grand Tyler for Most Orso Stoops. And then the weakest of all moments, Most Orso Michael Johnson appointed me his Grand Senior Deacon in 2022. In between all of that, I joined Tuscan Lodge, um, an Affinity Lodge, where your membership is based on either having been or currently are a district or an area deputy. Um, I served as the worship master of that lodge in 2020 and have been the secretary there since 2021. Um, my Eastern Star path, my mom had the opportunity, was elected Worthy Grand Matron in 2004. I served as her Grand Chaplain in 2021. I was appointed Grand Sentinel. And in Eastern Star, that's the start of the progressive line to be the Worthy Grand Patron. And in 2023, just this past year, had the honor to serve as the Worthy Grand Patron, and Sister Wendy Cunningham from Chanute and I presided over the In God We Trust Grand Family. A little bit of history there in that the first family to have a husband, wife, and child all serve as a Worthy Grand. Next year, will be a second, Teresa Ryan, when she is installed as Worthy Grand Matron. Both of her parents both serve. Um, so being serving as Worthy Grand Patron was really a way for me to honor my folks who really are the reason why that I'm in Masonry. And then to step back a little bit further, 2008, I was elected to membership in St. John's Lodge number 14 here in Emporia, which is part of the Prince Hall Grand Lodge. Yep. And in 2010, I was elected Worshipful Master, making me the first Kansas AF&M Mason to serve as a Worshipful Master of a Prince Hall Lodge. And I served in that role for 3.5 years. And today I'm still active and serve as their treasurer. So
So
just a
what
little
you're
bit about what I've
so
done.
what you're telling us, you really haven't done a lot in masonry, but you hope to get a little more involved.
I really do, right? I think it's a great organization. And I just hope somebody give me a chance.
Yeah, I believe in you, and I'm going to tell you this. I know you've had a slow Masonic career, but I have a feeling this episode's just going to launch it for you. I just have a feeling for you.
Good. All right. Everybody needs one of those hype videos, so I'll
That
take
that's
it.
right. That's right. We're going to get you a hype video after that, and get some music set and everything. So let me throw some questions at you now, because you've had really uh, arguably, when we asked for the bios in advance and I see it, I went through 17 reams of paper printing it. It was fascinating. A single space and 10 Arial font for anybody that wants to know. So it was just amazing. And I've known you for a while, and I knew that you're very involved, but starting to see everything was just fascinating. So I don't know how you balance it out, but good for you, and it's awesome. So let me ask you this: if you were a master of any lodge again, whether it be Prince Hall or AF&AM, what's the one thing, only one thing you do different? So you go in the East at a lodge tomorrow. What's the one thing you do different for that year that you wish you would have accomplished when you were a master?
So let's assume it's a traditional lodge, right? Not an
Okay.
affinity lodge or anything like that.
Yeah.
So the one thing that I think I would do would be I would focus more on our widows. I think, we obligate ourselves, and I think we're good to respond to their needs, but I don't
We're
know that
reactive,
we.
not proactive.
Yes, right. I don't think I think we could do a better job at that. And I failed miserably when I was master of my lodge, but I'd been a Mason for 3 years, and I barely knew anything about Masonry. I could run a meeting and I was a decent ritualist, but I knew very little, and I didn't have much guidance. But I think that'd be the thing that I would do, is
I
really
like it.
focus, more than the inviting them once a year to our awards program and
Yeah.
recognizing them for 30 seconds.
Yeah. I that's a great one. And we make promises before brothers are even a Mason, especially in some things like that. And yeah, that's a great one. it wasn't what I expected, but it's dead ass on. So I love it. So Affinity Lodges, you're a member. So I was going to ask you a different question. So let's just go to it. For those outside of Kansas that don't know what an Affinity Lodge is. So essentially, you have to be a member at another lodge. But an Affinity Lodge, for example, um, these are a group of master masons that decide to open a lodge that may be all law enforcement or all first responders or all motorcycles or all past area district deputies. When it first came out, probably in 2012, maybe before, um, I was a little, I kind of fell into camp like, I don't know, that's not really on the level until I started to realize that, if this is what keeps somebody in, because Dave's masonry looks different than Brian's masonry, and if that's something that gets them involved, why aren't we doing that? So I love all that about affinity lodges. Those who don't have them, that's the affinity lodge. So my question to you about what if you were allowed to start an affinity lodge today, what would be the one that you would start in Kansas? What are we missing?
Well, so it's funny you say that, right? So when I worked at Emporia State University, I had actually had some conversations with some folks in education, and I was really working towards. I was going to call it University Lodge, but it would be all of those that work in education, whether you're a teacher or you're in administration or whatever your role is, right? But
Love it.
probably one of the greatest workforces in our country and the most needed is education. And I thought, man, if we could bring them together as Masons, I just, but then I left the university, so I wouldn't have qualified to be a member of the lodge that I wanted to start. But I think today I would still ride if I had that opportunity.
I like it. I like it. Yeah, that's good. There's so many. I mean, a Wichita State alum could do it. KU alum, K State. I mean, there's so many affinity lodges that we can do, but I
K
love
through
affinity.
12, right? Yeah,
Yeah, I love affinity lodges because it gives somebody another reason not to leave.
right.
Little spin.
So I'm a member of four lodges, and we talk about the ideal Masonic experience, right? And you just said it, right? It's different for everyone.
Yep.
I belong to four lodges, and they're four completely different lodges, right? I love my home lodge, right? It's where I mean, that's who I am, right? Great group of guys, and we do our thing. We're big into philanthropy and being involved in our community. I joined Anchor Lodge in little bitty Williamsburg, and they're blue jeans and a buttoned up shirt kind of lodge. I joined them when they were on the Grand Lodge Death Map. They were meeting maybe once a year, and they brought in they brought back some guys and they had some energy, and I felt like I had a skill set that could help them be successful.
Love it.
And today they're a very active lodge. They've got membership of around 50. They've got money in the bank. They're very active in their community, but it's relaxed, right? I can go to lodge now if I wanted to in blue jeans and a button-up shirt, and you're right at home. Um, Obviously, I'm a Affinity Lodge where it's tuxedos
Yeah.
and it's more formal, right? And we have dinners and then of course Prince Hall is just completely different from anything that
Yep.
we experience. So on any given day, I can go to any one of my lodges and have a completely different experience. And I like all of those experiences, which is
Options,
why,
baby. Options.
yeah, absolutely.
Well, and there's a lot of options in masonry, whether it be from the Blue Lodge, Scottish Rite, York Rite Shrine. There's so many options, and that's the thing that if somebody says, I'm just not getting anything out of it, my immediate response is, what'd you put into it and what are you looking for? Because let's recalibrate here because there's, whether you're not feeling it the Scottish Rite or not feeling it the York Rite, the Shrine, the Blue, it doesn't matter. There's something, if you're going to put the feelers out, there's something for literally everyone.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So that it
I
is a
would
great
agree.
thing about our organization. So that's where it sets us, the Lions Club or the what other stuff they have out there. We're different because we have so many other opportunities. So love it. You mentioned Bob Talbot earlier, so it's never an episode where I don't throw a little bit of shade on Most Worshipful Bob. So it's a yes or no question. Bob always forces Russ and I to call him the best looking living grandmaster ever. So, yes or no, is he the best looking living grandmaster ever?
So now you really put me on the spot here, right? Because that's my Masonic grandfather.
Oh, yeah, I know who it
And,
is.
and, and I know you have a man crush on my Masonic father.
Yeah,
So,
there you go.
so and there's absolutely no family resemblance here. I freely admit
You
that.
know what? I'm not going
Uh,
to make you answer the question. I'm going to make Talbot squirm.
well, well, I appreciate that.
I'll get you out of that, my friend. So, um, in the past, somebody you've never had dinner with before, if you could have dinner with somebody from the past, who would it be and why? That you've never had dinner with.
Right? No, I get you. So, in 2018, my wife and I took to celebrate our 25th anniversary. We took a trip back east, and we did all kinds of things. But we ended up in Philadelphia, a chance to reconnect with some of my cousins that I hadn't seen in 40 years. But we went to Independence Hall, and standing in Independence Hall, looking in that room, which by the way is not very big, and imagining the folks there. I've always wanted to have dinner with George Washington,
Yeah.
for a lot of reasons, right? And probably last on the list is because he was a Mason. But I mean, I just everything that those guys accomplished. I just, man, I'm full of questions, right?
Yeah.
What, why, how, what?
We think we've accomplished stuff in our life. We ain't done nothing, man.
No, right? No. So yeah, so I would say George Washington.
Yeah, George would be a good one. I've heard a lot over all of our episodes. Um, I think you might be the first George, which I've expected it. But yeah, he'd be a good wooden teeth and all to just chomping
Yeah,
away.
right.
I
Right,
don't I want
exactly.
to see it. I love it. Yeah, no, I think he'd be a great one for thousands of reasons that don't even have to be Masonic, right? So, why do you think more men aren't joining Masonry today? What's the deal?
You know, right, if we had the answer to that, we'd be rock stars.
Yeah,
I
right.
think I think first and foremost is the evolution of the cell phone. I mean, I just think people can't get away from their phones. Um, working at a college campus for 25 years, I watched the evolution of parents, and I think about how I was raised, and now we have, I think, a majority of our younger parents are helicopter parents.
Yep.
And so, because of that, right, they don't or won't leave their kids. I worked with a guy who his kid never went to a babysitter. And it just blows my mind, right? You got to have a life. And so I think we use those two things as excuses.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. I'm still connected with folks at Emporia State, and I would say that the Greeks, both the fraternities and sororities at Emporia State, are probably at 50% of membership where they were even 9 years ago when I left. Um, so for whatever reason, right, we have a generation that just isn't joining. My dad always talked about his generation didn't reach out to their sons to get them to join. That whole, you got to ask if you want to be one.
What a
And he
terrible
always
thing.
called it the lost generation, right? We just didn't. And my dad, I knew my dad wanted me to be a Mason, but he never once broached the subject, until I actually handed him my petition as one of his Christmas presents.
Oh, I love it.
Um, and I knew, right, in all my being that's what he wanted, but he would not talk about it. Um, so I don't know, but I think I've seen a lot, um, where now grandsons are getting interested, right? Whether grandpa has had a conversation, or maybe has laid down their working tools, or
Yeah.
maybe near end of life, and have talked about what it's meant to them. I know in Emporia recently we've had an influx of grandkids,
Right.
sons coming in. So
Yeah. Yeah. So after that question, which is there's no answer to it, right? There's a thousand reasons why. So if you had a magic wand in masonry and you could boom, pop it one time, what would that magic wand do for masonry?
wow. So I think what I would like to be able to do is to, with my magic wand, dispel all of the negative rumors that persist, right? I think a lot of people end up not joining because whether it's their particular religion or or they've heard something or they've read something, right, that may or may not be true. I think
Or
it's
or some jackass representing masonry has got online acting a fool and they think that's our brand. Let's just be honest.
right, right. So if we could magically make all that disappear and let masonry stand for what masonry is, and let men make the decision based on whether they want to improve themselves and be better or not, and go from there.
Yeah. Yeah. So you had alluded to it earlier, so I'm going to ask the question to make you uncomfortable a little bit because I like to do that. If you're elected, you will be Grand Master of Kansas in 2026 and 2027. Well, 2026, for those of you that don't math well, that's going to be the 250th anniversary of the founding of our country. So, if you haven't planned anything, got a little pressure for you. What do you got? What do you got planned for us, Kansas Masons? Should you make it that year? It's kind of a big year.
Yeah, well, it's funny you say that, right? So it was about, I don't know, September or October last year when it dawned on me that holy cow, right? That's the year. Um, yeah, so we got a lot of things, a lot of thoughts. Um, I hope to have a big splash event that I think that all Kansas Masons would enjoy. Um, might involve a trip to certain place in our country. Um, definitely want to have um, some celebrations around the state. The Council of Administration is, and will be all about Masonic unity. So bringing our appendant and concordant bodies together and having some celebration, whatever that means, a couple of times around the state. Uh, Definitely want to have a big splash event with our Prince Hall brothers.
Yep.
I think it's time that we kind of reignite that. That flame died a little bit, and we gained some momentum with the 25th and the renewal of the compact, and I think this would be a great
And the
opportunity
joint
to,
raising in 2008, 18,
yeah,
18, yeah, 15.
yeah, and the dedication, and we did the table lodge, and so what a better way to come together and show that Masonic unity, and show the world that, hey, Kansas is leading the charge here when it comes to Masonic relations.
Love it.
And oh, by the way, hey, let's have a celebration because, right, it's a milestone.
So you're cryptic, which I appreciate it because you don't want to jinx yourself. So once it gets a little less cryptic, I want to bring you back and let you tell everybody what's going on. But think about this as you were talking, I picture think about this crew. We rent a small RV and you've got characters in it. You got me, you got Stoops, because that guy can stir it up. You get Johnson, you get Russ Brown in there. Four of us are going to wherever the place may be, and we road trip and video this whole Masons on the move, and it would be a would probably get kicked out of masonry, so we probably shouldn't do that because we'd be a little
Right?
we'd hoot and holler too much. But damn, that would be a funny road trip for Kansas Masons to see the debauchery that could happen on a road trip.
Yeah, right.
That would be great. We need a
Definitely
voice
be
of
a movie.
reason in there
Yeah, right.
to settle
I
us
hope
down.
that's not me.
I know. Listen, if Byrd ever has to be a filter in a conversation, it's gone awry. So that's for sure. So
I will say that hope is that at annual communication in March that we're able to unveil at least the big splash event, which would give our brother Masons some opportunity to prepare for that.
yeah, so I've been able to know you from a Mason, from when you're on the foundation and outside the foundation, and I'm rooting for you. Whatever we can do from behind the scenes, we love it. You've got a different lane you're going to run, and I think it's going to be great. And I'm glad that should everything work out like it's supposed to, that you've got the 250th anniversary of our country. I think it's going to be great, and I think you're the right one for it, my friend.
Thank you.
So, all of that said, I softened you up for this. The most important question of the podcast, dancing girl, dancing girl. So 4 things are going to come up on the screen. One of them has to go forever. It was never invented. So of these 4 things, you have to tell me which one must go forever. So for those on the screen, we have Masonry, we have the Kansas City Chiefs, we've got the Jayhawks, and we have basketball. I could have stuck Emporia State in there and done you really dirty. One of these has to go forever. Masonry was never created. The Chiefs, they're never there. They're still in Texas. They're not even the Kansas City Chiefs. The KU Chicken Hawks have never got a title. They're not there. And basketball was never invented. Dave, which one goes forever? If you get rid of basketball, that means your daughter never played 4 years of that sport.
I know, right? I know.
I've set you one.
So,
I've set you in one direction that you can go, and there's only one.
yeah. So, so initially I thought, well, it's easy, right? I'm a Cowboys fan, not a Chiefs fan. But then I thought, well, wait a minute, right? My son has had some great opportunities.
Yep.
He's also dirty, right? Because he works at KU. Um, but I would
Everyone
say,
thinks these are easy until they pop up in front of them.
right. So, right, obviously, masonry stays. That's the easiest. You're right. Without basketball, my daughter, I'd have to say KU goes.
It's got to go forever. You chicken hawks, get out of here. We don't want to see anymore. Hook them. That's all I've got to say. So, Dave, thank you for joining the podcast. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for being a guest. And everyone,
Thank you.
thanks for watching the Old Fashioned Masonic Podcast. Cheers.